yourself as a New Yorker first, an American second, a Swede third, a smoker fourth?
Yeah, New Yorker, definitely. And I would say that among the epiphanies of September 11th was, I used to think of myself really as a rootless cosmopolitan, as I mentioned in those London Review of Books pages, which was Stalin's pejorative for us Jews who liked living in cities. But I really did feel that, like, there was a kind of long subway line, and I lived on this subway line, and included Paris and, to a degree, London and Berlin and whatever. When we got away from Ground Zero, because we were down there that morning retrieving our daughter and had the building fall behind us, as soon as we were out of immediate danger, I was walking down Canal Street and had this wave of affection that I hadn't allowed myself to feel prior to that, going, wow. Now, I had two thoughts, one of which was in that series of pages in the London Review of Books. One of them was, now I understand why Jews didn't leave Berlin after Kristallnacht, because this is their, that was their world and their home, and I felt that way about New York City, about my part of the city, Lower Manhattan, late that morning. And I then had to cross out in my head this phrase, rootless cosmopolitan. Nah, you're a rooted cosmopolitan. You live on the Canal Street stop. Yeah. And yeah, London, Paris, that's all well and good. It's on your line in the subway, but it ain't the same as the home stop. So even though it's a peculiar place to call home, because Canal Street is a kind of mad, more like Istanbul-like street than an American street, that really was my corner, my neighborhood.
That really strikes to the heart of something, too, which brings us back to Maus, which I want to talk about for a while. Is this sense, this is my Germany, the bewilderment of the German Jew, of the Polish Jew, of the Czechoslovak Jew, when it started to happen. But this is my country. How is this happening to me in my country? Mm-hmm. And the inability of Germans, other Germans, to see that these, for instance, that a Jewish shopkeeper in Bonn considered himself German. I am German.
In the recent past, something I thought was a joke wasn't, which was the stuff about the French in America. Yeah. All of a sudden, like, they were calling them freedom fries, and I thought, oh, that's good, that's a nice, stupid joke. But within days, I came to realize it's not a joke. My wife's French, and it was quick. It hadn't been there before. To be French for a woman, I'm not sure what for a man, but for Francoise, you'd get points being French. You're chic, you're sexy, you're sophisticated. Yeah. It means it has positive connotations.
And stuff us rubes can't even guess at.
But it was with a kind of positive connotation. Within 3 days, they managed to turn the French into Jews. It was easy.
That must have been quite spooky for you, because, I mean, Maus 1, Maus 2, 1986, 1991, extraordinary effect, translated into 20 languages, graphic novels. I mean, the French have it, bande dessinée, but there isn't really a great tradition of that in the Anglophone world. It's raising all kinds of almost impossible to answer questions. The essentialist question, is there something essentially German which makes them cats, something essentially Jewish which makes them mice? This is coming after the Sixth Day, coming after the Yom Kippur War. Whatever happened to the Jewish mouse, the mouse who roared. It's challenging essentialist ideas, but it's also saying, yes, but we must go back and look at it again.
That's it. About of the 2,005,000,005 articles that have appeared on Maus, I would say 2,001,000,001 have been called The Mouse That Roared, but I never made that Zionist connection. It's really interesting what you just said. First of all, graphic novel tradition wasn't part of the French tradition. It's the word graphic novel is just this cosmetic. It means comic book when it's not stupid. But the French tradition was these albums of about 40 pages. What really there wasn't much of a tradition of was a long, complex, a work that has the complexity of a real novel, which is maybe why that phrase was able to take hold, even though in my case it was trying to make something that was nonfiction, but a comic book that could have a bookmark. So it was anomalous in America, and now it's becoming a notion in France, where comics have been much more hospitably treated and received. But now they're beginning to make these longer works in France, but that's recent. When Maus was made, which was about from 1978 to 1986, the death camps were not as much part of popular culture as they've become in the decades since. Even attitudes toward Israel have been shifting so much. It's a project I started really working on in 1972 when I was about... when I was 24 years old, I did a 3-page strip that eventually, many years later, became the long book. The attitudes toward Israel over that whole time have changed, and Israel itself has changed over that whole period of time. One of the things that has made Maus seem anomalous, and out of the 25 or 26 languages now that it's in, one of the languages where it's not especially successful is Hebrew, is because Maus is one of the only works about the Shoah, the Holocaust, and popular culture that doesn't posit Israel as the happy ending.
Hmm.
It almost ignores Israel. Since I'm following my own little family's journey, except for one brother who ended up there, I'm just lucky enough never had to have had that hand dealt to me of having to play out being an Israeli, whatever that is.
Would it be so difficult for you?
It'd be impossible. It would be mind-breaking. Yeah.
Why?
Well, again, we have to go back so far to figure out what I would be if I had been brought up there. But certainly, if I'd have anything to do with myself, I don't look good in a uniform. You know, I don't think I'd be able to make it in a military culture. And the tradition I embrace all my life has been the diasporist notion of the world without borders. Where
The positive side of cosmopolitan.
It's why I was happy to think of myself as a ruthless cosmopolitan. But that was actually the condition. The real human condition now is that we're all ruthless cosmopolitans, even if you get to live on a farm somewhere.
I had this conversation
Ireland.
with a Jewish poet friend of mine that said, that the more the Jews of the world focus on Israel, the less we have the benefit of having their culture has become part of ours and complicate our cultures. Mm-hmm. I'd sooner Aggie came and lived here, even though she's working in the peace movement in Israel. She should probably, be more benefit to us all.
One of my problems with Israel in general is I find it hard to sympathize with either side deeply, and yet I certainly, I've got to give the nod. Like I feel horrible for Palestinians and Jews, but both of them have this kind of nationalist urge, and to me that's so primitive, and I'm not I don't think it's a good idea.
Maus is a very sophisticated way, and using sometimes deliberately primitive techniques, like the large moon behind the figure when the cinematic pronouncement is being made and so on. Maus is a way of saying no matter how you try to simplify it, it's going to be complicated by the end.
Well, I think the nicest review I got, I became good friends with the reviewer actually in the years since because I liked this phrase so much. He wrote an article about me in which he described Maus as being a work of crystalline ambiguity. And I really liked that so much because I was like, how do you do this thing and not simplify an incredibly complex situation? And all you can really do is bring everything you can understand into focus, but not then go that 1 centimeter past that, where it's no longer in focus, it's a caricature.
You don't draw lessons, you allow it to tell itself. I mean,
and
here we have a comic novel about the Holocaust.
Well,
that's the clash of forms. I'm not saying that's the clash of forms.
the word comic is, that's why even graphic novel is a bad word, comics a bad word, but comic meaning not necessarily funny,
comic
but
book.
comic book.
I'm talking about the graphic style of it, right? It appropriates the style of the comic book to deal with the Holocaust. I mean, that was an enormous collision.
It was, but I stumbled into it. It wasn't a matter of like saying, I got one, this will make everybody crazy, I'll do Auschwitz in comics format. It really just is that's the language I think my most rarefied thoughts can be expressed in comics.
But these come out at a time when the biggest thing in New York painting is Julian Schnabel.
Well, the Schnabel stuff was pretty goofy, but there was also that kind of East Village painting that was going on at the same time that had more to do with the Raw magazine world that I was traveling
You come
through.
up through the underground comics.
Yeah.
In fact, as far as I can make out, the only one you didn't write for was the fabulous Furry Freak Brothers.